You always starts the same way. You trust them. You open your world. You give your time, your loyalty, your secrets. You believe they're on your side, and then, out of nowhere, betrayal. It cuts without warning. It leaves confusion, anger, and silence. But what if betrayal isn't random? What if it's not about who they are, but about where you failed to see the signs? What if every betrayal you've ever experienced wasn't an accident, but a predictable outcome of ignoring Machiavellian truth?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Machiavelli didn't just study power, he studied betrayal like a surgeon studies the body. He once wrote, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." That is not cynicism, that is clarity. People betray you not because they are evil, but because their loyalty had an expiration date. It served them until it didn't. And when the equation of gain shifts, so does their allegiance. The first truth we must accept is this: betrayal is almost always logical. It's not emotional, it's not mysterious, it's not personal, it's strategic. People do what benefits them most in the moment. When staying loyal costs more than switching sides, they jump. And if you don't understand this psychological law, you'll keep taking it personally instead of seeing the pattern. You'll keep thinking it's about you when it's just about incentive. Let's go deeper. Have you ever trusted someone blindly, thinking your loyalty would be enough to anchor theirs? That's the mistake. Loyalty is not built on feelings, it's maintained by alignment. When your goals, power, or protection no longer serve their interest, they begin to look elsewhere. Slowly at first. A word behind your back, a diverted favor. Then, the knife. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. Men are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, covetous, he wrote. He didn't say this to condemn humanity. He said it to prepare us. Humans are driven by fear, opportunity, and self-preservation. This is not evil, it is instinct. And if you build your life assuming people will act against their own interest for your sake, you're already building on sand. So why do people betray you? Because you gave them power without control. Because you offered trust without leverage. Because you assumed your goodness would bind them. But Machiavelli would tell you it is much more secure to be feared than to be loved. Not because fear is better, but because love without consequence is fragile. People don't betray what they're afraid to lose. They betray what they think they can walk away from without cost. Here's a painful realization. Many people in your life are only loyal because they haven't found a better opportunity yet. And the moment they do, the moment someone offers them more status, more access, more gain, they will leave. Not because they hate you, but because they never truly prioritized you in the first place. You were a step, a resource, a bridge, and once they crossed it, they burned it. So how do we protect ourselves? How do we move through life without becoming paranoid but without being naive? The answer is Machiavellian. You must design your relationships with awareness. You must understand the psychology of loyalty. You must know that trust without boundaries is exploitation waiting to happen. That love without strategy is an invitation to be used. Ask yourself, who around you benefits from your power, your energy, your resources, but pays no price for betraying it? Who in your life could walk away tomorrow with everything they've taken from you and feel no consequence? If that list is long, you're not protected. You're surrounded. And the betrayal is not a matter of if, but when. This is where Machiavelli's brilliance becomes terrifying. He didn't just study betrayal, he weaponized it. He taught rulers to expect it, to plan for it, and when necessary, to use it. He said, a wise ruler ought never to keep faith when by doing so it would be against his interests. That sounds cruel, but it's a mirror. If others are playing this game and you're not, you lose. Not because you're wrong, but because you're unprepared. Let's be honest, you've been betrayed before, and not just by enemies, by friends, by lovers, by partners, by people you swore would never turn, and every time you were shocked. But were there signs? Were there moments when they began to pull away, to shift their tone, to redirect their loyalty, and you ignored it because you didn't want it to be true? That's the danger of optimism without awareness. It blinds you. So what do we do next? We evolve. We stop assuming loyalty is free. We stop believing that love is enough. We start building alliances, strategic ones. We start creating relationships where betrayal has a cost, where walking away doesn't just mean leaving, it means losing, not out of vengeance, but out of design. Because if people can betray you without consequence, they will. Machiavelli said, the vulgar crowd always is taken by appearances. And so are you if you believe someone's words more than their patterns. People always show you who they are. But if you need them to be someone else, you'll ignore the evidence. And betrayal thrives in that blindness. It hides in plain sight, waiting for the perfect moment to strike, when your guard is down. You must become someone who sees the game without becoming jaded, someone who loves deeply but never blindly, someone who trusts but verifies, who gives but with limits. That's not cold, that's intelligent. That's survival in a world where human loyalty is often more conditional than we'd like to admit. Here's a super deep question. Would the people closest to you still be there if you had nothing left to offer them? Strip away your status, your money, your influence, your kindness. Would they still sit beside you? Or were they only ever sitting beside what you gave them? That question can't be avoided. It must be faced, because the answer defines your future. Machiavelli would tell you to test your circle, not with cruelty, but with clarity. Remove the benefits, say no, withdraw attention, watch what happens. The ones who stay, those are your real allies. The ones who vanish, those were liabilities disguised as friends. And you're better without them. Betrayal will still come, it is inevitable, but the more you understand it, the less it will destroy you. You'll see it, expect it, prepare for it, you'll stop being surprised, and when it happens, you won't collapse. You'll pivot, you'll build again, wiser, stronger, sharper. You'll no longer be the one who asks, how could they do this to me? You'll be the one who says, I knew this was coming, and I'm ready. There's a moment in every betrayal that hurts the most. Not the act itself, but the realization that you gave someone the power to harm you. You handed them the blade, you trusted their hands, and still they used it. That's the lesson most people avoid learning. It's easier to blame the betrayer than to ask the more painful question, what did I ignore? What did I allow? Machiavelli would not waste time with emotional paralysis. He would demand you face the structure of your relationships, not just the surface. People betray you because they can, because the cost of betrayal in their mind is lower than the benefit. And if you've built a world where betrayal has no cost, you've built your own downfall. This doesn't mean you should become paranoid. It means you must become aware. Betrayal is not a moral failure, it's a strategic calculation. And if you don't understand the emotional economy that drives others, you'll keep getting blindsided by actions that were predictable from the start. Machiavelli once wrote, "Men are driven by two principal impulses, either by love or by fear. If neither is strong enough, loyalty becomes optional." Think about that. If someone doesn't love you deeply or fear losing you, then what are you relying on? Convenience? Familiarity? Emotion? Those things are slippery. They fade. And when they fade, people drift, or they turn. And if they do, it's not a crisis. It's simply a correction, a revelation. Let's take a hard look at your past. How many betrayals came after you ignored a red flag? How many people showed you their ambition, their selfishness, their capacity to choose themselves over you, and you forgave early signs in the name of love or loyalty? That's the trap. Not that they betrayed you, but that you allowed it to build up slowly by giving chances to people who already showed you what they would do when pressed. Here's one of Machiavelli's most ruthless insights. A prudent man should always follow in the path trodden by great men and imitate those who have been supreme. Why is this important? Because betrayal doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens in systems. You must study betrayal the way a general studies war. Not emotionally, strategically. Who benefits from your downfall? Who gains if you stumble? Who wins if you trust too easily? You're not required to live in fear, but you are required to live in reality. And reality says this: people are often loyal until they're not. And that shift usually happens in silence, long before you see the results. The betrayal begins in their thoughts, their hesitations, their resentment, their envy, and you can feel it if you pay attention, if you're not too distracted by your need for connection to see the cracks forming in loyalty. Ask yourself, are you surrounded by people who would defend your name when you're not in the room? Or are you surrounded by people who tolerate you when it's convenient and remain silent when it's not? That's the difference between an ally and a risk. And if you don't know which is which, you're exposed. You're vulnerable, not because of your heart, but because of your blindness. This is why Machiavelli emphasized control. He believed the greatest mistake a ruler or a person could make was to assume that good intentions are enough. He wrote, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." People will say what they need to say to gain your trust, but when circumstances change, so do their promises, and if their integrity was never tested, you won't know until it's too late. So how do we protect ourselves? By building systems of truth. By watching patterns, not words. By giving slowly and testing often. You don't give someone your full trust because they make you feel good. You give it because they've shown repeatedly that they value your peace more than their own gain. And even then, you stay alert, not paranoid, just present. Let's talk about leverage. Machiavelli believed that power must be balanced. If someone in your life has everything to gain and nothing to lose by betraying you, the betrayal becomes inevitable. You must create consequences, emotional, financial, or social, not as a threat, but as structure. People are less likely to betray when betrayal costs them something real, and that cost doesn't have to be external. Sometimes the cost is your presence, your energy, your silence. Imagine this: someone betrays you. not in a dramatic way, but in a subtle, dismissive act. They lie, they undercut, they gossip, and instead of confronting them emotionally, you retract. You don't scream, you don't chase, you simply become unavailable, cold, focused elsewhere. That silence is terrifying because now they feel the loss, now they realize what they risked, and that realization is louder than any confrontation. So what does imposter syndrome look like? Do not underestimate the power of absence. It is the most elegant punishment. It requires no explanation, no justification. It speaks for itself. Machiavelli would advise this over emotional retaliation, because when you react emotionally, you give your betrayer power. But when you disappear, when you elevate, when you act like they never existed, you reclaim everything. Here's another psychological truth. People often betray you because they believe you won't retaliate. They believe you're too soft, too forgiving, too dependent. You've trained them to think there are no consequences. So when they act out of self-interest, they assume you'll recover, forgive, and remain. And if that's your pattern, you've made yourself a safe target, not because you deserve it, but because you allowed it. So what changes now? You shift your energy. You stop announcing your boundaries, and you start enforcing them without warning. You stop over-explaining your worth and let your distance speak. You stop trusting words and start tracking consistency. And, most of all, you stop giving second chances to people who broke the first one without remorse. Machiavelli never asked us to become evil. He asked us to become wise. He asked us to see human nature as it is, not as we wish it were. Because only then can we navigate betrayal without being destroyed by it. Only then can we rise from the ashes, not as victims, but as masters of our fate. You must become a person who cannot be betrayed easily. Not because you trust no one, but because you trust with intelligence. Because your circle is earned. Because your standards are high. Because your presence is a privilege, not a guarantee. And when you move like that, betrayal becomes rare. Not because people change, but because they know you won't tolerate it. Let me ask you something. What would your life look like if every person in your circle feared losing your respect more than they feared losing your attention? If they knew that even a hint of betrayal would result in quiet, irreversible distance, how would they behave? Would they tighten up? Would they grow? Or would they disappear? Betrayal is not just a wound, it's a mirror. It reflects the parts of you that were too trusting, too hopeful, too blind to patterns that were always there. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's when transformation begins, not in the pain, but in what the pain reveals. Machiavelli didn't study betrayal to become bitter. He studied it to become strategic. He knew that betrayal is not a failure of morality, it is a failure of preparation. To outgrow betrayal, you must understand the psychology behind it. People betray because the opportunity to do so is greater than the risk. It's that simple. The moment betraying you becomes more beneficial than staying loyal, the temptation becomes overwhelming. Unless you've built a structure where loyalty is rewarded and betrayal is punished. Machiavelli said, "The nature of people is variable, and whilst it is easy to persuade them, it is difficult to fix them in that persuasion." In other words, loyalty is fluid, and if you don't anchor it properly, it evaporates. Many of us were taught the opposite. We were told that loyalty is sacred, that if you give love, support and trust, people will return it. But that's not real. That's emotional fantasy. People don't respond to love alone. They respond to systems, to consequences, to benefits. You must create an environment where staying loyal to you is always the better deal. If not, you're gambling with human instinct, and instinct is rarely noble when tested. Look at the betrayals in your own life. Not just the dramatic ones, but the subtle ones. The friend who started copying your ideas without credit, the partner who slowly withdrew affection but stayed for convenience, the colleague who smiled in meetings but undermined you in private. These weren't accidents. They were calculated, and if you were shocked, it's because you didn't see the math they were doing behind the scenes. That's why Machiavelli believed in cold observation. He wrote, "The prince must be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves." That means you need to be emotionally intelligent enough to see betrayal before it happens and powerful enough to make it unwise for anyone to attempt. You don't need to threaten people. You just need to make it clear through your actions that your trust is not cheap and your forgiveness is not automatic. The next evolution of your life begins when you stop being shocked by betrayal and start being prepared for it, not in a paranoid way, but in a measured Machiavellian way. You create a system around you that filters people out. You give slowly. You test intentions. You never put anyone in a position where they could destroy you with the secrets, resources, or love you gave them too soon. Ask yourself now, who in your life knows too much but has proven too little? Who have you allowed into your inner circle based on charm instead of consistency? Who have you trusted because you needed to believe in them, not because they earned it? That's where betrayal lives, in the gap between your emotion and their actual track record. And when betrayal happens, don't beg for explanations. Don't chase closure. That's weakness. That tells the betrayer they still have emotional power over you. Instead, go silent. Go colder than they expect. Make them feel the full weight of your absence. Let them wonder if they ever really knew you. That mystery is your revenge. Your silence is your sword. Machiavelli would say, one must be a great liar and hypocrite. Men are so simple and so obedient to present necessities. He didn't mean you should lie. He meant you should understand that others will lie. They will smile while plotting. They will promise and forget. They will serve themselves and call it love. If you don't see this clearly, you'll keep playing fair in a game that's built on illusion. But here's where it gets powerful. Once you accept that betrayal is part of the human experience, you stop fearing it. You stop clinging. You stop bending your standards to prevent it. Because you realize if someone is going to betray you, they were never with you in the first place. They were acting, and your only mistake was giving them the stage. You must become the kind of person who cannot be emotionally blackmailed, who doesn't trade dignity for closeness, who doesn't tolerate disloyalty under the disguise of everyone makes mistakes. Yes, people make mistakes, but betrayal isn't a mistake. It's a decision, a premeditated move, a conscious betrayal of trust for personal gain. And if you excuse that, you open the door for it to happen again. So what is the real solution? You build a life where your circle is small but strong, where people are vetted not by how they make you feel, but by how they act under pressure. You pay attention to the little things, how they speak about others, how they handle anger, how they respond to boundaries. Character reveals itself in friction. And betrayal doesn't start with grand acts. It starts with micro disloyalties that you tolerate. Here's a radical shift. Make people qualify for your loyalty. Make them earn your trust the same way a nation earns treaties, with effort, consistency, and proof. This doesn't make you cold, it makes you powerful. Because now your vulnerability is protected. Now your love is shielded. Now your energy isn't wasted on people who view relationships as transactions. You must also learn to betray expectations. That's what Machiavelli would do. People expect you to react with weakness when betrayed. Don't. They expect you to ask why. Don't. They expect you to cry, to beg, to spiral. Don't. Instead, respond with success, with silence, with evolution. Make your next move so powerful that it makes their betrayal look like a footnote in your story. And what about forgiveness? Forgiveness is personal. It is for you. But reconciliation is optional. Just because you forgive doesn't mean they deserve access again. You can let go of the pain without reopening the door. You can heal without re-inviting the snake back into your garden. Forgiveness without forgetting is wisdom. Forgiveness with forgetting is suicide. Machiavelli wasn't about revenge. He was about results. He believed that betrayal should never destroy you. It should reveal to you who never belonged. That's your mindset now. Not why did they do this to me, but why did I allow them to get that close in the first place? Not, I can't believe this happened, but thank you for showing me who you are before I invested more. So now you rebuild, not with bitterness, but with clarity. You upgrade your standards. You become harder to reach. You stop being impressed by charm. You look for patterns. You ask better questions. You guard your peace like a fortress. And in doing so, you become the kind of person who is never betrayed twice by the same hand. Let me ask you one final question. Who would be terrified if they knew you finally saw them clearly? Because once you do, once you stop making excuses, stop ignoring red flags, stop assigning loyalty to people who haven't earned it, everything changes. You'll lose some people, but you'll gain yourself. And that's a trade worth making every time. So the next time someone betrays you, don't just feel it, study it. Be constructed, learn from it, let it sharpen you, and then rise, colder, wiser, quieter, but absolutely unstoppable.